Hi, my name is Esther Robb and I'm Marketing Manager here at TCON. I'm very excited to have Juliana Bruwer from SAP in Australia with me today. Hi, Juliana.
Hi, Esther. Nice to talk to you today. As you said, I'm based here in Brisbane, and it's a lovely sunny day out here.
There are a lot of industry-specific needs. Is there some that maybe pop into the back of your mind immediately because they're just so striking?
I think if in my industry, my focus industry, mining more products, there's a very big focus on sustainability. And although they have always been very regulated and had to comply with all those regulations, the need to look at your sustainability besides your own operations, but also upstream and downstream, has become a lot more important. And it's all voluntary to look at those data from your upstream and downstream in terms of sustainability, in terms of carbon emissions and so on. So that definitely is a trend, and it's driven also by demand from investors and the public. So there's definitely a trend with sustainability becoming increasingly important through the supply chain instead of just focusing on your own operations.
Mm-hmm. You just mentioned the upstream and downstream part. Is there anything that kind of strikes you about that?
No, I think the trend or the goal of what everybody is trying to achieve is essentially to say, similar to the way you look at products in a supermarket, you pick up a tub of yogurt and you say, oh, how many calories does this yogurt have in? And I think how our end consumers would like to think of what they buy in the stores, whether it's clothing or a car or an electronic device, they would like to have that confidence that what they're purchasing has been produced in a sustainable manner. And I think in order to achieve that, you have to consider the upstream and downstream sustainability as well, and how that flows through the hands of everybody who touches that product, from the raw materials through to the end product.
So is it more like a demand-driven reason to actually try to become more sustainable and also to include the upstream part?
I think our customers are definitely demanding more sustainable operations from big corporations, and keep in mind that consumers and also investors are a lot more educated than they were maybe 20 years ago. Today they can just go onto the internet and they can look at the sustainability report, annual or biannual data from any corporation. So there's a demand from them to be for these corporations to be more sustainable. But there's also, I think, for the corporations themselves, that the responsibility, the brand importance for sustainability for their brand, all of these things contribute. And on top of that, we have shifting regulations and the whole climate action, climate change. So it's basically coming at it from all angles, if you like.
So you mentioned the regulations that are rising, you mentioned the customer demands. They are way more informed than they used to be. And then also investors, they'd rather put their money where they know a sustainable product is being developed. Is that basically all the facets that are coming at the manufacturers, or is there more?
I think it sums it up. I think that's about the framework in which they operate, yes.
That sounds like a lot of pressure, but how does a manufacturer actually, start with trying to become sustainable? I imagine that seems like quite the obstacle for a lot of them.
Yes, well, so if you're thinking about where do we start, there's really the two ways that you can go about this. You can either say, let's get the outside-in perspective with a management consultant, and there are really specialists in this space that can help you look at your operations and see what are the biggest risks? What would climate change do to your operations? And then what are the short-term initiatives, medium and long-term initiatives that you can start tackling, and then create your own corporate targets, whether you make it public or not, and also tangible steps that you can take to achieve it. You can also take the inside-out approach, where it's more data-driven, where you say, well, what we can't measure, we can't improve. And to do that, you might look at getting your data in a more granular level and looking at machine learning and other technologies to help you assess where those sometimes quite small improvements might lie that can eventually lead you to a more sustainable future. So incrementally, that's one option. Or maybe you discover some really big low-hanging fruit that you can start improving on right away. So yes, I would see that as inside out, outside in, and data is definitely going to be a key enabler. If you don't have the data, definitely look at getting a corporate system of record for example, your emissions, your energy, your water use, and of course all the other ESG or sustainability metrics that you might want to track and improve on.
And how does SAP, for example, support manufacturers in tracking that data?
Right. So if we look at ESG, there's quite a few different metrics that you might want to track. There's of course the people aspect with diversity and inclusion and equality, and also there's financial aspects. There's also risks. There's safety metrics that you might want to report. There's your water use. There's your electricity use, your energy use. There's carbon emissions. So there are many different ways in which SAP supports our customers with systems of record, for example, to capture this data, to maintain this data, whether it's human capital management HCM, or whether it's environment, health and safety data, whether it's procurement data that you see to be able to screen and look at the risk of your incoming supply from your supply chain, those sustainable suppliers. So there's a whole raft of solutions that we can. So if you think about how sustainability works, it's really embedded in every aspect of what you do. You can't really separate it out and say, here's the magic solution that's going to help you be more sustainable. But we do have solutions in a raft of different areas, business process areas. And then on top of it, of course, also helping our customers to pull that data into reports so that they can produce those corporate reports that they need at the end of the day for the investors or internally to see how they're tracking against their targets and so on. So yeah, I hope that clarified it a little bit. It's a broad subject.
Yeah, but honestly, I think that's what's exactly interesting, because I think a lot of people automatically think if you want to produce a green product, all you have to look at is the production process itself. But from what you just mentioned, it basically goes across all business processes, and that companies in those industry really need to kind of have a look at the big picture in order to become sustainable.
Absolutely, yes. Emissions is just one. It's just one of the KPIs that we use to measure the sustainability of a corporation.